Hi everyone, today we're going to be having a short video on how to do tomato seed saving with me, Miss Casey. All you're going to need for this is an old glass jar. As you can see, I'm using an old pickle jar here, a tomato, and then a cheesecloth or a paper towel, some kind of cloth, and a rubber band. This technique for saving tomato seeds can also be used on other wet fruits like cucumbers, melons, and squash that have that kind of wet pulp or gel surrounding the seeds themselves. This gel contains anti-germination chemicals that will make it so your seeds won't sprout, and it also might carry viruses to the seed, which you don't want in your next generation of plants. Because this pulp is so tightly bound to the seed, you can't just wash it off normally. So today we're going to be using a process called fermentation to remove this gel from the seeds. This entire process is pretty fast to do and is a great opportunity to get a little messy in the kitchen. First, what you're going to do is you can mush your tomato a little bit just to make sure it's as squishy as possible. Then you're going to cut your tomato into smaller, different segments, and here you can see I'm pointing out the parts that we're going to be extracting from the tomato, the little seeds with that gel or pulp surrounding them. The next step is to extract your seeds and the pulp from the tomato itself. There are a few different ways you can do this, including just tearing it by hand or using your knife or a spoon to scrape away the seeds into a little pile on your plate or your cutting board, as I'm doing here. I'm going to be using both of these techniques throughout this video. You can use whatever feels best to you. Continue extracting all your seeds until you have the entire tomato's worth of seeds in a little pile of seeds and pulp on your cutting board or your plate or whatever you're using. You can use the rest of your tomato to repurpose in a salad or to make something like salsa, and that way you'll have just the heartier part of the tomato without any of that mushy, seedy part. From there, you can spoon all of your seeds and pulp into your glass jar until you have all of the seeds in the bottom of the jar. This is what your jar should look like once you've put all the seeds in the bottom. Next, go to your sink and fill up your jar with a few inches of regular temperature water on top of your seeds. This is what it should look like after you've done so. You can see most of the seeds are still at the bottom and some have floated to the top. Finally, you're going to take your spoon and just give this mixture a good mix many times. You'll see that all the seeds will start swirling around in the water. After that, you can take whatever kind of cloth you're using. Here I have a paper towel, and you're going to put that over the top of the jar and secure it with a rubber band. The reason we aren't using the top of the jar to cover the tomato seeds is because of that process called fermentation. We're only going to cover it with a cheesecloth or a cloth or paper towels because the fermentation process requires air to get into the jar and mix with the seeds. Place your covered jar in a warm, shady outdoor location. As it ferments, it might have a little bit of a stink to it, and because you're going to be repeating this process over several days, you don't really want to have to smell it, so it's best to keep it outside if you can. Each day, stir the mixture to mix it more and help release more of that pulp from the actual seeds. It will start to look a little foamy, and this is when it will start to smell. That's how you know that your fermentation process is working and you're on your way to having viable seeds. After 3 days or so, a good amount of fermenting will have happened and you should be ready to do your first rinse of your seeds. You'll see that there's probably a bubbling, whitish or gray kind of substance that has risen to the top of the water, and this is perfect. That's exactly what you want to be happening. Scoop off that floating, bubbling, white stuff from the top. It looks a little yucky, and you can discard that in the trash. You might also see some seeds coming with that. Those are just the unviable seeds that will not work if you had planted them another year, so it's okay to get rid of those. All of the good seeds will have sunk to the bottom of your jar, and they should be good to go. Next, you can pour this whole mixture through a fine metal strainer and give it a good rinse with just some regular tap water. From there, scoop these good seeds back into your same jar, add a few more inches of water, and we're going to repeat the process over the next few days. Repeat the fermentation steps until there is no more bubbling and no more of a substance on the top of the surface of the water. This means that your seeds have been fully cleaned and they don't have any more of those anti-germination chemicals or any potential viruses. Transfer your seeds into a plastic or a china or a plastic coated paper plate to dry. Don't use a napkin or any other kind of soft paper or fabric surfaces because the seeds will stick to those. So you want to make sure that you use something that they'll be able to dry off on, and then you can scoop them into a bag or something to save. You can place your plate in a room temperature spot to dry or directly in the sun. As the seeds start to dry out, make sure you break apart any clumps so that each seed is an individual once it has dried. Once they are completely dry, which usually takes up to a week, you can put them in a paper seed packet. Make sure to put the date on it and label what kind of tomatoes you have, and then you can store it in a cool, dry, dark location until you are ready to plant. Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you're enjoying our videos, you can support us today at www.gardenschoolfoundation.org/donate.